Well, thank you. I'd like to thank Viviana for this nice introduction. Now, um, we want to know what intelligence is, don't we? And how we can transfer at least one part in our machines so they can help us. Unfortunately, for quite a long time, we have associated intelligence to our logical skills. So this means that the researchers and developers focused on this point only, so making machines smart or intelligent, being able to solve complex logical tasks, for example, playing chess. Now, machines are better than us in playing chess, but they also play, well, very complex games, for example, Go or Deep Blue. We understood this is not enough. So this is something that's not enough for us. So question number one. So this is forced to stay in a virtual world. They have no body. They cannot interact with our world. So plenty of research was dedicated to developing bodies. So robots that made giant steps forward. Look at humanoids. So even if you just consider this sector, you see robots having incredible skills. They can jump. They do the so-called parkour. Are we happy with this? So have we created the real platform able to cooperate with us? The real intelligent or smart one? No. Because, quite often these machines, which are able to carry out incredible actions, I mean, they play chess, but they make mistakes. So we have a robot jumping backward, but then it doesn't know when to give me an object, or, for example, shaking hands with Angela Merkel. Robots can do some things that people cannot do, and they are not able to interact with us, which is what these children can do. So this is an incredible set of skills that we develop very early. So we understand things. We know when we have to do something together. This is a paradox based on a partial vision of cognition or intelligence in general. Neurosciences have considered, if you will, the mind and the brain as if they were two separate items. So our skills were sort of disjoint, separated from our body or emotions. Well, this is a wrong vision or perspective because this is what someone discovered, well, sort of not well many years ago. This is an artificial separation or split. You can see here the words from Antonio Damasio, a neuroscientist, and he wrote a book, The Error of Cartesian. So emotions are not a plus or a luxury. They are one of the key elements of the fact that we are rational. First and foremost, emotions play a vital role from the communication point of view. They give you a general idea of how I feel inside, but they also have a crucial role in our decision-making skills. As scientist Damasio says, if there are injuries or lesions on the emotional part of the brain, well, those people cannot make rational decisions. So we have to know and learn that we are something more than simple rationality. I mean, our own rational attitude is an across the board dimension, also including emotions. This means we have to also recognize another thing. We see the world in a way which is completely different versus what our robots do. And, this happens because we sort of color our reality, we change it. It depends on how we are made, how we feel inside. And, this means something different. We don't see the world um, the way it is. We don't take pictures of reality. I mean, our perception is much more complex. It's an inference. This means that all the time, at all times, our brain takes in the stimuli, but then it enriches them. It sort of fills the gaps by taking advantage of information based on our past experience. We just don't realize this is happening until something goes wrong. We just understand this when the mechanism, which is usually perfect, well, we have some visual illusions. Maybe we don't understand something correctly. This happens on the perceptive but also cognitive levels. For example, we don't remember things for what they are. Our brain changes reality to help us understand reality and interact with the others. We see the world through anthropomorphous eyes or lenses. It's sort of, distorted. Well, this dates back to so long ago in terms of perception of other people. This is what Darwin said. How can I understand emotions of another person? Well, actions are, they speak louder than pictures. It's true, we mentioned mirror neurons. Well, we do have some mechanisms that give us the possibility to read beyond the actions performed by someone else. This is a robot. Now, when the robot sees this action, well, he sees a movement. So, an object moving from A to B. So, when I see this action, what do I actually see? Well, I see the objective. So, Carlo is giving an object to the robot. So, there's an intention there. From the look, the posture of Carlo, of this guy. So, a sort of an interaction with ICAP. Okay, so there's, nice communication. So this tells me something more about the relationship with the object. All of this information is to be used implicitly when I interact with Carlo. The robot right now is blind. I mean, he's information blind. So this is what we do. We would like to give this robot the possibility to understand us and to be understood by us. So it acts in the world in a smart, intelligent way. But what we want is a relationship from him. So we use, ICAP as a platform because actually, basically, it was created some years ago. It is a platform to study the human cognition. The European multidisciplinary project behind the ICAB aimed at understanding an intelligent system, just like a human a child, rebuilding a part of these skills into a robot. Now, ICAB, well, we have not just one, we have 50 ICABs in different research centers around the world. We share, information, and he's now become famous. And you can see that Angela Merkel has learned how to interact with robots, so she's now imitating ICAP. So in this context, what we do is creating a mutual understanding. I mean, being able to read the unsaid language. Those communications that take place under the awareness surface. A look, a gesture, a posture, a trembling voice. So some simple elements. We don't realize this is happening, but we use this all the time to create a model of the other, to foresee how another person will react, for example. So we want to create a sensitive robot, understanding our face expressions, understanding our reaction to what he has just done. Just think of training or rehab. Maybe you can have a robot which is able to monitor our performances, so if we are doing great or not, but they can also, well, he can also understand if I'm tired, if I'm involved or not. So we can adjust training, not just in terms of performances, but also considering affection or the internal feelings or status of that person. So we want to read face expressions. We communicate with movements. For example, now iCub will be able to read this information, understanding how to treat an object without understanding which kind of object it's manipulating. Okay, just by observing how we manipulate it. Another source of fundamental information is our look. Our look speaks about our intentions. It can also reveal our cognitive load, so how difficult I'm finding doing something. So iCub is now understanding or reading this information. For example, look at this. We have some cards. iCab monitors our look. He tries to understand which card this is and if we are lying or if we are telling the truth. A sensitive robot means we can help him adapt to us, understand us, and we can make it even more, well, let's say, easier to understand. So, if I understand what I am sensitive to, well, of course, I will base all of my behaviors so as to be transparent, clear, and predictable. For example, we need to understand how to allow ICAP to move correctly to express our kind movements or aggressive movements. Now, these signals are felt very clearly inside of us. I mean, there are some areas of our brain specially conceived to distinguish the style of our actions. So, will a robot be able to distinguish, I mean, all of these styles? Well, we have worked a lot to reproduce the so-called signature of an aggressive behavior in the behavior of ICAP. Now, if this is done correctly, well, actually, the neural response in those areas of the observer's brain is exactly the same when observing a robot or a person expressing, a kind, nice attitude or an aggressive one. If we develop the robot's behaviors correctly, well, the robots will be able to use the same, if you will, neural mechanisms, which is what we use on a daily basis when we interact with other people. Now, this is interesting from a scientific point of view, but this is so important from the application of behavioral perspective. For example, we saw that if the robot moves in an aggressive way, well, when I have to interact with objects, well, I become more aggressive automatically. So we need to modulate, the movement so as to completely change the action evolution. Now, these are just some examples. So there's so many signals that we can study to make robots more aware of what happens. So we can study man or humans to understand signals and mechanisms, but then we can translate all of them onto the robots so as to challenge them during the interaction. So what's the next step then? Well, this is our new frontier, giving the robot the possibility to use skills independently. So being able to understand man, then adapting and customizing interactions in a predictive way. Now, yes, this is definitely difficult. It means we have to develop a cognitive architecture, something that merges perceptions, actions, memory, planning, prediction. So all of this is right inside our robots. Now, this was a huge research effort having to do with neurosciences, cognitive scientists, robotics scientists. Now, if we consider all of the cognitive architectures developed so far, we can see that the real inspiration is exactly what you see here. A child, well, very smart, intelligent, creative, Thanks to curiosity, he or she can interact with the environment, but he's there with no one else. So look at what happens with this child at that age. The social dimension, but also the affective dimension, if you will, is absolutely overwhelming. Now, maybe you don't understand this happens in the cognitive architectures we have in the world today. Now, there's a beautiful paper here. Now, in this paper, you can see a sort of a meta-analysis of 40 years of cognitive architectures, collecting the basic foundational principles, something that you can find across all architectures. Now, authors have identified important hints: perception, action selection, memory, of course. Now, take a look closer. There's nothing that clearly concerns the affective or social pillars. So this is our effort today. We have to try and add this dimension, which is absolutely cognitive per se. We will fit it into the architectures that we have inside our robo. Now, this is an example of what I'm saying. We are reproducing the two key features I have just mentioned. Emotion is sort of a communication system. Emotion is also a thrust or a guiding star so that we can make the right, hopefully, decision. So you can see here, ICAB looks at the face expressions of the person. He can express, face expressions, once again, in a very simple way. But then inside, there's motivation. So he's looking for comfort, which is what we defined in the following way: growing depending on the increasing number of social interactions. Now, this is a simple architecture, I know, but anyway, we saw that the robo, which is based autonomously onto this architecture, well, he learns how to personalize his interactions. He becomes communicative, interactive with the people he wants to interact with, and then he's a little, skeptical, so he doesn't really get involved in people he doesn't like. Now, this is a lab example, I know, but the same principles can also be widened, broadened, and structured into more complex architectures, and all of this can turn into practice. And again, this is an example where ICAB is a sort of a yoga teacher. Now, autonomously, independently, in real time, he corrects the unfit, incorrect positions. At the same time, he learns the key features of every single trainees. Thanks to different meetings or encounters, training systems will be personalized based on the needs of every trainee. Now, we have a long way to go, but the objective we have is really key. We want to make sure robots will become more human. Wait a second, they won't look like us. When I say more human, I mean they really have to understand us more. They have to be able to, to count on a correct model. They will adjust and adapt to us. They won't just be precious, valuable, tools with plenty of skills that we have, to control. Well, they will become partners or collaborators. This being said, I really would like to thank you for your attention. I'd like to thank this incredible team, boys and girls, making this research paper possible. Thank you so much.